Welcome back to the Vinyl Fetish Club. I've been away for just a wee bit. I had the COVID. I've been vaccinated, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, but the Delta variant, bam, got me. I was down in the basement trying to breathe for about 10 days, but I'm back, ready to go. Sorry I had to miss a week of putting out a video, but I watched a lot of Netflix shows about UFOs, so I know all about that. I could do a whole nother channel on UFOs. Hey, we're doing a really great album this week. So if you remember, we're doing 100 albums that you need in your collection, focusing on some maybe missed classics and why they're important and what their sociological relevance is. So this week we are focusing on the Clash's triple album, Sandinista, and really sort of changed the game in the discussion about punk rock. It was the follow-up to London Calling, which of course was their sort of breakthrough record with the song Train in Vain that got played on mainstream radio, started getting a lot of attention outside the world of punk rock, including a lot of new wave kids in Stone Mountain, Georgia, where I lived, were listening to that record with the reference to the first Elvis album there, if you don't know. Picture of Paul Simonon of The Clash at the Agora Ballroom in Atlanta, where I wasn't old enough to get into that show. But that record really changed things, and a lot of people have put London Calling as the best album of the 80s, even though it came out at the end of 1979, and the most important record ever made, and the Clash is the only band that matters, on and on and on. They took the rest of the next year, 1980, while promoting that record, to record this massive 3-record set. Massive. And Sandinista was very timely because it was referring to a lot of the political situations that were happening at the time. Sandinista, named after the rebellion and the revolution in Nicaragua in 1979, where the Sandinista guerrillas overthrew the American-backed Somoza regime. A lot of politics on this record, but more importantly, a lot of different styles. Everything from dub to ska to jazzy music to kind of old school punk rock to, and just really kind of like a White Album kind of scenario. It was recorded all over the world. It was recorded in England, where they recorded everything else before. Some of it was done in New York at Electric Ladyland Studios, and some of it was done in Jamaica with the great reggae star Mikey Dread producing a lot of the tracks. This record confused a lot of people. This came out my freshman year in college. We spent a lot of time in rooms. In fact, I had to replace my copy. This is a brand new remastered copy because somewhere in college someone swiped my copy of Sandinista. And we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what this record was all about. Each side is sort of a little bit different, kind of equally divided between the work of Joe Strummer and Mick Jones. But there are some other vocalists like Ellen Foley, who is Mick Jones's girlfriend, who is probably best known for working with Meatloaf. Timon Dog, who's an amazing fiddle player. In fact, I saw him play above a pub in London in 1983, just him and his violin. Amazing singer. But just a real variety of songs, including some songs that had sort of Marxist themes. Magnificent Seven talks about Marx and Engels in the kitchen. And Ivan Meets G.I. Joe. Probably the most significantly political song on this album is Washington Bullets, which is kind of a lineage of all the anti-imperialist activity that was happening at the end of the 70s and early 80s, including in Chile and in Nicaragua, in Cuba, and in Afghanistan, which of course is still anti-imperialist as I record this, right, as the Taliban take over Afghanistan. The record was confusing to a lot of old school punk rockers because, when the Clash started, White Riot, it was just really fast, hard-paced, angry rock reflecting the anger of the youth of England. And this record has ballads, it has remixes, it has dubs, it has almost like sort of jazzy little tunes, Rebel Waltz, Crooked Beat. And was it punk rock? Was it something more than punk rock? And it was an opportunity to think of the 80s as being something different. So this record in 1981 was a topic of a lot of conversation, topic of a lot of debate, was on a lot of best of the year lists. The song that was most played on the radio was Police on My Back, which wasn't even a song that they had written. Run-In Police on My Back, kind of like a remake of I Fought the Law and the Law Won that they had also covered. I've always been sort of hypnotized by this album, just the way that it sort of takes off the ability of Joe Strummer to leave basic punk rock behind and create these images about global justice and what was happening in England. It's Up to You Not to Heed the Call Up, one of the best anti-war, anti-draft songs ever. I used to sing the song all the time in the 80s. You don't have to kill, you don't have to fight. But one of the things I want to talk about this record, so this is definitely an album you want in your collection, especially if you want something expensive. In fact, Joe Strummer had said, you know, they did a triple record because they wanted to make an album for people who worked on oil rigs and Arctic stations who didn't get a chance to go to the record store every week, to give them as much music as humanly possible. But one of the things about this record is its Marxist elements. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about, since each of these record reviews, we're talking a little bit about the sociology of the record, because the idea of Marxism gets thrown around a lot. There's a lot of people that are panicking when they hear the word Marx. I've been teaching Marx forever in my sociology classes, and I have to say, just calm down. I'm not teaching you to hate America or to overthrow capitalism. Well, maybe a little bit. But to get the basic ideas of what Karl Marx was all about. And Karl Marx essentially wanted to critique capitalism. He believed that capitalism was the ultimate form of oppression, especially as he saw it in the textile factories in northern England, especially the Irish immigrants who were being literally worked to the bone. And so his whole philosophy comes out of a critique of capitalism. The Clash is a Marxist band, or was a Marxist band. In fact, I find it funny when conservatives are, singing Clash songs, or liberals for that matter are singing Clash songs, because this music is inherently anti-capitalist. And this album is a really good example of it. They got a lot of flack from CBS Records for wanting to do a double record, and they wanted to kind of strike back at the big record company, and they said, okay, the next record we're going to do is going to be a triple record. You thought that was a lot of music. The next album is going to be a triple record, and the record company said, no, you can't do it, it's too expensive. And the Clash, being kind of connected at least to some ideas of Marxist philosophy, said, fine, we'll take a cut in our royalties. We will take less money to keep this record affordable for our fans, and we will, instead of wanting to be the rich rock stars, we will be the ones who just bring the message out and really highlight the importance of the music over rock stars becoming famous. In fact, I saw Joe Strummer shortly before his death performing in Portland, and there was some punk there that screamed at him, "You're a sellout." And Joe said, "What are you talking about?" "You have a big tour bus." Like being a big tour bus makes you a capitalist. Joe's not a sellout. So this, what this album brings out, besides all the incredible music that's on it, the dreamy music, the hard rocking music, the kind of dubby Jamaican music, is, can you convey the messages of Karl Marx in a record? And is there a place for that? Is there a place to critique capitalism in a capitalist system? You have to go to a record store to buy this record, to exchange capital for this record. Within it are critiques of imperialism and wealth and the Cold War, when Ivan meets G.I. Joe, which is, by the way, speaking of when Ivan meets G.I. Joe, I'm enjoying this conversation today with a little bit of vodka, since we're talking about the Cold War. A little bit of Stoli. Forgot to mention that. So, how many people who listen to this record are going to pick up on the messages? How many people who own this album even know what Sandinista is? Which is still in power, by the way, in Nicaragua. How many people are going to get the references? There is a great song on here called Charlie Don't Surf, which is a reference to a 1979 movie called Apocalypse Now, which was a real sort of heavy condemnation of the Vietnam War. Charlie Don't Surf, Charlie being the Vietnamese. That film was a big deal when it came out in 1979. It was R-rated. I'll never forget. I was 15 years old. Told my mom, my friends and I want to go see Apocalypse Now. My mom said, it's R-rated, you can't go. And I felt like here it was a time when I need to defy my parents. So I went to a matinee of Apocalypse Now, was blown away by it, and came home and said, Mom, I just want to let you know, we went to go see Apocalypse Now, and it was brilliant. And I was grounded, but it was well worth it. That was sort of the time that all this was happening. So it's kind of like, Public Enemy often refer to themselves as CNN for black people. They were sort of reporting through their music what was happening in the black community. This is really kind of a news report of the world in 1980. What was happening at the dawn of the new decade, of the beginning of the Reagan era. But the question is, how many people who listen to this know these references, and do you have to? This is another thing. Do you have to understand all the references, or can you just let the words wash over you because they sound cool and foreign and exotic? This record is not going to turn you into a Marxist, but having a little bit of understanding of Marxist critique of capitalism and imperialism kind of makes this record make a little bit more sense. So it's a great record to have in your collection because of the massive, 6 songs on every side. Tons of music. Besides all the music that you get with this, from the Clash at their absolute peak, the only band that matters, you get to have some conversations about, what can music tell us about the world, and should it? And should it provide a critique that even, a teenage rock fan can kind of sink his or her teeth into in understanding how the world works and the dangers of capitalism. That's a great record, just one of my favorites. I had to replace it. I have it on cassette, I have it on CD. My original vinyl copy is somewhere else in the world. This is my new vinyl copy of it, and you should have it too in your collection. So that's it. Clash, Marxism goes together hand in hand. White Riot, I Want to Riot, Riot in the Home. Next week we're going to take on our first live album. We're going to talk about Aretha Franklin, who's back in the news. Aretha Franklin live at the Fillmore East. And that is going to be a really great album to talk about. So, just wanted to give you this quick update. Feeling fine, 99% recovered from the COVID, so I'll be back doing our weekly record reviews. This record, this band matters. This is the only band that matters, as we used to say back in the day. This record definitely matters. This music matters and you matter, so let's talk about it.